Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Micah, and this channel is dedicated to learning, teaching, and discussing everything about cybersecurity. So today we are back in LetsDefend, and we are investigating a possible IDOR attack. So if you're not familiar with what IDOR is, here's a quick overview. IDOR is a insecure direct object reference vulnerability, and it's a type of access control vulnerability that arises when an application uses user-supplied input to access objects directly. So in layman's term, it is an access control vulnerability that allows users to access things that they're not authorized to access. In this first example, we have an IDOR vulnerability with direct reference to database objects. In the URL, we can see that the customer number value is being used to retrieve information from the backend database. Since this website is vulnerable to IDOR, an attacker could exploit this vulnerability to retrieve information of other users simply by changing the value of the customer number index. This type of exploit could also be used to gain vertical or horizontal privilege escalation. So here is a visual example of an IDOR vulnerability. After gaining access to our user account, we see that our customer number is displayed up top. By simply changing the number to a 2, we have access to somebody else's user account. We go a little bit further and we obtain vertical privilege escalation by finding the customer number that belongs to the admin user. Let's just dive straight into it. So I went ahead and copied down some of the event details into XPath. As you see, we have the event time, the rule, host name, destination IP address, source IP address. And with stuff like this, when it's external, because it's an external IP address, I like to do a little bit of OSINT just to see what we're getting into. So let's open up abuse IPDB. Let's open up VirusTotal, and then OTX Alien Vault, and I forget the URL. And let's just paste in that IP address. And so immediately we get back a lot of malicious entries from users. So we see an attempt to log into QNAP NAS via SSH. Maximum authentication attempts exceeded for invalid user. So it's just a lot of entries. So we're kind of confident that this URL, that there's something malicious happening here, but we're not 100%. And we see VirusTotal has some flags on it as well. And lastly, in OTX, we see 45 pulses. So these are user created entries, and usually, or we see here that it's a honeypot. So this is probably like automated entries from their honeypot or from their devices that are capturing this information and then sending it to OTX. So there's a lot here, and we're fairly certain that this is a malicious IP address just based on our OSINT. All right, so moving along, let's, so we have the source IP address. We did some OSINT here. Let's check out this web server. I'm going to keep the monitoring tab open because I hate reloading web pages. And let's go into endpoint security. So we can check out the browser history. So honestly, I doubt there's going to be anything in here because we really should be looking at the logs. So let's go to log management. And let's put in that questionable IP address. See if we can see any logs based on that. Okay, we have a couple here. So if looking at the raw log, we see that there is a request to the URL of our, or the IP address of our web server, and it was successful. We get that 200 status. That means successful. Is a post request. It means they are trying to upload something to the web server. And we see here they're using this query user ID equal to. So in instances like this, it looks like if you were to log into this URL or to this web server, you would get a response, or you would get some kind of user ID that basically maps the user ID to your user. So we see this, whoever this attacker is, he's posting different user IDs, trying to basically see who they can get access to. We see 213. Oh, the same one. We see 4. We see 5, and these are all successful, I believe, right? So yeah, we've basically said that this alert is, not a false positive, and we see evidence of IDOR attack from this IP address. So just for some additional context, here is an excellent example of IDOR and Try Hack Me. And let's go through these emails to see which URL is potentially vulnerable to IDOR attack. And I already see that this one is the potential candidate. So we see that this invoice is being referenced in the URL, and it's asking us to change this to, instead of 1234, to change it to 1000. And we see that it's displaying another user's invoice just by changing the order number here. So I get that's probably the only order that we can test out. Yeah, it is. But we can go back to 1234 maybe. Nope. Okay, well, anyways, you see what's happening. Basically, you're changing the parameters or the value of something in the URL to access something you're not supposed to. And that's just giving you a little context onto what IDOR is, if I didn't explain it clearly. So it seems like the attacker was able to log in successfully using 5 different user IDs. So let's go ahead and lock this endpoint down, and let's see what's our IP address. So let's go ahead and request containment. So we're fairly certain that this is not a test or that kind of thing because of our OSINT. We see that this is DigitalOcean, and it's flagged from many, many different people. This is, not something that, this is not normal activity for a test or for, a web application testing or penetration test. And we can check out threat intel to see if there's already some kind of entry about this IP address, and we don't get anything back. So at this point, I think we pretty much have everything we need to move forward, because this IP needs to be blocked. We cut off the endpoint from our network. We contained it. There's not much else for us to do beyond remediating that vulnerability on the web server, which is probably like implementing some kind of access control. But let's go ahead and go back to monitoring, and let's create a case. So thankfully, this LetsDefend has playbooks, and it basically walks you through the alert, why it was triggered, and it gives you some wonderful context. We pretty much already did this. We examined the rule name. We figured out what the attack or what IDOR attack really meant or means. We did our due diligence, so we know what's happening. We detected which devices the traffic is occurring between, and it's external to internal. So ownership of the IP addresses and devices. Okay, something we did not do. So let's go to, well, it's a DigitalOcean IP, but maybe we can find some ownership information using IP info or like who is. And we don't see a name tied to this, and I might be doing too much, but why not? Gotta love captchas. So sometimes you'll see the owner, their phone number, that kind of thing, if they're not using privacy controls. And we not found anything here. So let's go back to case management. So it's not coming from a company network. It's not internal. This is external to internal. So we don't have any of this. Ownership of the IP address. Sorry, that's my phone going off. Let me mute that. And we check. Oh, so we don't know the ownership. There was nothing. It was all private. We know it's DigitalOcean IP address. It's web hosting. reputation of the IP address. And also, this is all stuff that we could be writing down. So we're going to be using this ARP scheme to investigate and to write down our notes. So DigitalOcean IP, we got high confidence of abuse, user accessed, user ID 1 through 5 via IDOR attack. And this just means action is we're going to investigate. Response is basically the details from our investigation, and then our plan of what we're going to do after, we gather all of our information. So what else do we have here? Let's go back. So role name we said was IDOR. Detect. I guess we can add that. External DigitalOcean IP, which is kind of obvious, but if the traffic is coming from a company network, blah, 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 so we did that. Examine the HTTP traffic. Check the traffic content for any suspicious conditions, such as web attack payloads. We did that. And we know it's IDOR because that was the alert told us it was, and we validated that with our own findings. It's a traffic malicious, I would say. So it's coming from a highly malicious IP address, and then we see that it's actively attacking our web server. And it's IDOR. Was the attack type? IDOR. Check if it's a planned test. It's not planned. We see that it's coming from a DigitalOcean IP that's not owned by LetsDefend, and it's not associated with any kind of attack simulation product like Veridan, Attack IQ, or Pike is, so it's not planned. And it is internet or external to our company network. Check whether the attack was successful. And we saw that it was. We got the 200 response back from our HTTP server, and we can also add that to our notes. All attacks were successful. 200 response. Oh, I can't spell. Wait, did I just... Oh, yes, sorry. Next, was the attack successful? Yes, it was. Containment. Since it's detected that the device is compromised, the device must be isolated in order to restrict the attacker. Blah, blah, blah. We already contained it, so hit next. And we can add, I guess, the IP address of the attacker here. Needs to be blocked immediately. So we don't have any email. We don't have a URL, IP address. I guess we don't have anything else to add here. And you still can't remove this stuff. I pick on LetsDefend a lot, but they're doing like a great job. This is the most realistic SIEM platform for training I've seen yet. So kudos to them, but it still needs some polish. Do you need tier two escalation? In the cases where attack succeeds, when the attacker compromises a device in the internal network. So we saw that the attack succeeded, and we think we have a compromise because we know we have a compromise because we saw 200 responses, which meant a successful IDOR attack, and it allowed the attacker to log in from 5 different user IDs. So yes, I will say we need tier 2 escalation. And we can add our notes to this event to close it out. Let's say L2 Analyst needs to block IP address. And that is the plan of action. This IP address needs to be blocked immediately. Finish playbook. Please click confirm to finish playbook. Your answers will be saved. Blah, blah, blah. Is that it? No, missing something. Oh, we just close it. Definitely a true positive. IP, I don't know why it keeps asking me for notes. I guess I can just paste in the same thing. And let's close that alert. Awesome. So all of your answers are correct. Click the details and share online. Oh, that's cool. Incident handler. Oh, I didn't know they had badges now. That's pretty cool. So yeah, shout out to LetsDefend. I see that they're adding a lot of new stuff, and honestly, it looks pretty awesome. And I've noticed you get 15 free alerts now. I've stopped paying for LetsDefend, but I'm going to start paying again because I really support this platform. And honestly, it's worth the money if you're trying to get to the SOC analyst or an incident responder position, just to get like some hands-on experience without having to stand up your own SIEM and do all that kind of stuff. So kudos to them. I would like to see more innovation and bug fixes in the future, but that's it for this alert. And I'm going to close this out by saying I'm going to be making more videos soon. I'm currently in the process of moving, a lot of other stuff going on, studying for my PNPT. So it's a lot going on right now, but I promise I'm going to be more consistent in the future. And just let me know if this video has brought you any value. If so, please leave a comment down below, and please subscribe. It helps the channel out immensely. I don't have anything else for this video, so stay safe and see you soon.